This video is for Theme Modeling and Simulation, Unit My iApp, and this is video 3. In this video I'm going to show you how to download the results from your questionnaire into Microsoft Excel and then analyze that data to create graphs. I'm then going to finish by showing you how to get the graphs from Microsoft Excel and put them into a PowerPoint presentation. So you can see that I've already logged into my Google Docs. So once you've logged into your Google Docs, you need to identify where in Google Docs your questionnaire is. Mine is here. I'm just going to click on it to see whether people have actually filled in my questionnaire. So again, this should open up the spreadsheet. Yep, that's right. You can see that some people have actually now filled in my questionnaire, and hopefully they've filled in yours too. Just going to close this. So I know that this is my questionnaire. I now need to download it. To download it, you simply click on this tick box, go to the More options here, and press on Download. It will then ask you how or what format you want to download this file as, and I want to choose a Microsoft Excel format. You have different options, but for this task we're going to stick to Microsoft Excel. Press Download, and the spreadsheet will download, if you're using Google Chrome, into this box at the bottom. Depending on what web browser you're using, you might have to locate where it's downloaded it to, so it might download it into a Downloads folder, for example. So mine has downloaded here. I'm going to click on it, which will open it up in Microsoft Excel. Now then, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom out so that you can see that there is quite a lot of data that's being collected from my questionnaire. But there's also a few things that I need to sort out before I start analysing this data. The first thing, for example, are these 1, 2, 3 columns are not needed. Now, you might not have blank columns like I have, although some of you might. And the reason that these blank columns have been created is because when I was creating the questionnaire, if you remember, I was actually experimenting with questions that were right, and then I thought they were right, and then I realized they were wrong, so I deleted them, but they'd still created the fields in the spreadsheet where it thought data needed to be entered. So it hasn't actually had any knock-on effect to the data that I've collected within the final questionnaire, but I do need to get rid of these blanks because these were not questions in my questionnaire. Every questionnaire comes with a timestamp, but we don't need that for this task. So I'm going to start by deleting in my questionnaire these 3 columns that I don't need. So if there's any columns in your questionnaire that you need to delete, follow these steps. You simply right click on the top heading of the column, which are the letters. So in this case I want to delete column A, so I right click on the A and press delete. That's deleted that column and shifted them along, so I need to right click on A again because I don't want this one either, and delete. And then you can see that this one is now column C, which is blank, so I'm going to right click on column C and delete that one as well. The next thing that I want to do is I want to check through the data that I've collected and get rid of any inappropriate data. So for example, you can see here that the first person that filled in my questionnaire, oops, I'll just zoom out. First person that filled in my questionnaire answered the last question with just gibberish. Oops, I'll just zoom up again. Here. So I'm going to delete that data. So I'm going to select it and press the backspace button on my keyboard. Like that. And then I'm going to continue skimming through this data and checking to see whether there's any other inappropriate data being collected. Okay, so that's it, and I'm fine with the rest of the data. The other thing that's making it difficult for me to read this at the minute is this E column here. Because the response is so long, I'm having to scroll down a lot. So all I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this column wider. To do that, all I need to do is identify the end of the column, which is this line here at the top, click and drag it along like that, and it'll actually extend that column. Notice that it hasn't resized the height of the rows, which I need to do next. So to resize the height of the rows, I'm going to move my cursor up to this cell here, click on that, which selects all of the spreadsheet, and then move my cursor down in between one of the rows. So here, like you can see, I'm in between row 1 and 2, and then I'm going to double click. And what that does is it resizes the rows to fit the longest piece of data. So now I can scroll through them a lot easier. Okay, so make sure that you do that with your spreadsheet. Get rid of any inappropriate data and make sure that you can read it correctly. And for example, I might just make this G column a little bit wider as well. Select these, double click, oops, select this, double click, there we go. Once you've done that, we're now going to analyze this data. So I'm going to analyze this field here. And the reason I want to analyze this field is because I want to find out which was the most popular app amongst the people that filled in my questionnaire. So to do that, I first of all need a label. If I can just explain why I need a label. Later on, I'm going to plot a graph of the data that I've collected. So I'm going to find out how many people have chosen that app 1 was the best, how many people have chosen that app 2 was the best, and I will end up with a number. But I also need a label to label that value, because when you plot a graph, you need two values. In this case, I need a label and then a result. So here, I'm just going to write the app 1 icon, and then underneath that, I'm going to write app 2 timetable. So I'm labeling each piece of data that's going to be in here. So in here I'm going to have the results, and these are the labels for the results. This one will be app 3, and I think that was landmark, and that was app 3, and then app 4 was skill. Okay. Now I've got my labels, the next thing I want to do is actually find the results. So to do that, I'm going to click where I want the answer, which is here. And then I'm going to add a function by putting my cursor on this button here, which is on the formula bar. If you don't see the formula bar, you need to go to view and make sure that this box is ticked here. If it's unticked, you won't see the formula bar. So just make sure it's ticked. So click on the function button once you've selected where you want your result. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this countif function to count how many times this app1 dash icon has been selected in this column. Alright, so I need the countif function. If you can't see it, select all from this drop down menu and then scroll down. They're in alphabetical order, so scroll down till you see count if there, and then press OK. And this is really simple to understand. First of all, you need to select the range of the cells that you want to count. So I want to count all of these, all the way up to there. I want to count all of these rows in this column. And the next bit is the criteria. In this cell here, what do I want to count? Well, I want to count that range if it says app1 dash icon. So I'm going to type in app1 dash icon. So I'm going to count all of those cells if it says app1 dash icon, and then press OK. Now then, I've got a 0, and I know that's wrong because I can see, look, the app1 dash icon does appear in that range. So something's gone wrong somewhere, and I think I know what it is. If I click on this cell and have a look up here at the top, this is the function that it's written for me. So I'm searching for app1 dash icon in this range here. If you've selected anything up here, you need to make sure you press enter to get out, like that. Now, what I noticed is, look at this small hyphen here. Yep. And then look at this big hyphen here. What I need to do is I need to go inside here, get this big hyphen, copy it, like that. Again, I've selected inside the cell, so I must press enter, and then go back into this formula, this function, and paste it to replace this hyphen, like that. You see, now I've got the big hyphen. Then press enter, and there we go. So in this range, it says that it can only find one occurrence of app1 icon. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the same, but this time I'm going to search and count if it says app2. So I click on the cell where I want to enter the result, function button. I need to find countif, so I'll go down to the C's. There it is, countif. The range, I select the range that I want to count. The value, I need to say app2. Now I've already got that hyphen in here, so I can right click and paste app2 I timetable and then press OK. So it's actually found 3 occurrences of app2 I timetable appearing in that range. So you can see one here, let's have a scroll up, and one here. So it's right, it's counted 3 of them, and that's correct. And I'm going to pause the video whilst I write similar functions for the next 2. You can see that I've now written these functions for the other 2 options here. And now I've got my labels and my results, I'm ready to plot a graph. So to plot a graph, I select the labels, drag along and select the results as well. So I've selected all of my data. I then go up to the top and click on Insert. I choose the style of graph that I want. So in this example, I'm going to have a pie chart. Click on the arrow, choose the style of pie chart you want. So I'm going to have this 3D effect one here, and it will create for me my pie chart. Now, this is quite a good pie chart, but it's not a brilliant pie chart. Why? Well, the reason is it's got no title. It doesn't tell me anything about what this pie chart shows. And also, I haven't labeled the percentages of each section in the pie. So to do that, make sure you've got the graph selected. And then in this design tab up here, you need to click on this option, layout 2. And that will create for you a title, and it'll also put, it'll create for you a title, and it'll also put the percentage signs on each section of the pie. I'm just going to make this bigger, and then I'm going to add an appropriate title. So this graph shows the most preferred app. There we go, and there's a good graph. Now what you can do then is you can then, once you've analysed that piece of data, I might want to write some more functions to analyse, for example, how many people have ever paid for an application. So I could count all those that have said yes. I could count all of those that have said no, if there are any. Yep, there are some not. And then I could plot a graph of those that have said yes and those that have said no. And then that graph will help me make a decision on whether I should probably charge for my app. So I'm just going to pause the video whilst I do that. So you can now see that what I've done here is I've created 2 new labels, no and yes, and I've created a function inside this cell that counts if this range here, D2 to D10, says the words no. Press enter, and there are 3. There are 3 people that said no, they have not paid for an app. However, there are 5 occurrences of the word yes in that range, which means that 5 people have paid for an app. So again, I could select this data, insert, again I think I'll choose a pie chart, and this time I'll do this style. I'll check layout 2, and there you go, look, 63% of people have said yes, they paid for an app. So again, a title, what percentage of people have paid for an app? And that's a really useful graph. So then that'll probably help me make a decision on whether I charge people for my iApp. Oops. Now what I want to do is I want to put this graph into PowerPoint. So to do that, I'm just going to click on it, right click, oops, I'm going to click on the graph, right click, copy, open up Microsoft PowerPoint. I can then choose a style that I want for my page by going to the Home tab, New Slide, and I think I'll choose this one. And then in here, I can right click and I can paste my graph. There we go. And then I could put a title on here, and then I could write about this graph and what it shows. So in this video, we've accessed the results from the questionnaire, we've downloaded it, analyzed the data, created graphs, and then put those graphs into a PowerPoint presentation.